Good evening, Mark Stott of HurricaneTrack.com here, back in North Carolina after chasing, tracking, whatever you want to call it, intercepting, I think that's the more appropriate word, Hurricane Matthew down on the east central coast of Florida. I was in the New Smyrna Beach area, collected some very valuable data, was successful in getting some live cameras up, kept reporting as much as I could. I thought it was a pretty good effort, and the response from social media, etc., has been very overwhelming, 99% positive. I appreciate it very much. Now we need to focus on what's happening over the next few days, not only with the track and the impact directly from wind, rain, and surge to North Carolina still, but then the increase in river flood threat in this area. We're going to shift away from wind impacts, storm surge impacts, and the overall heavy rain will shift offshore, but when it's all said and done, there is quite a network of rivers through North Carolina here that will all start to flood and do so pretty substantially. So we need to be ready for this, and I'm going to go over that for you this evening. So the latest track forecast has this coming right along the southeast North Carolina coastline, up through Onslow Bay here, off of Cape Lookout, and then turning south and east. It's really academic at this point because if we look at the satellite presentation, Matthew continues to degrade. You know, it's weird, that little frame right there where there's a missing image, bam. I don't know why that keeps happening in these satellite pictures, but it throws things off, doesn't it? Anyhow, you saw where it moved up along the South Carolina coastline. It did produce storm surge flooding all along this region, the extent of which we're just learning now. The aftermath part, I don't have news crews all over the place, unfortunately, so I can't ascertain what happened. I'm usually just the impact of when it's happening side of things, unless it's a really big disaster like Katrina, where I can stay down in an area and report on it for a day or two in the aftermath. But usually we like to get out and let the relief effort come in. Anyway, here's the current satellite, and you can see it's getting undercut with some strong upper level winds. The jet stream coming along and pushing this along and separating the energy in the mid levels from the energy at the lower levels. The center of the hurricane still down here somewhere. And let's go back and look at the stats on that. It's still a hurricane, believe it or not. The 5 p.m. advisory here, 75 mile per hour winds, and that's really going to be confined to any deeper convection, probably offshore. East-northeast at 13, and that'll pretty much do it for the major impacts on the immediate coastline, as we think of with a hurricane. Let's talk about Nicole real quick as well, just so I don't completely ignore it. The possibility that it gets close enough to Bermuda as a weakening tropical storm is there. So if you have interest in Bermuda, keep an eye on it, but it's, nothing to really worry about. And I don't see anything else blooming in the tropics down here just yet. We will cover that more on Monday's Hurricane Outlook and discussion, all right? So let's talk about what's happening here in the coming days. This is very important, and I need for folks to pay close attention to this in eastern North Carolina. Look at all the reds in this area, and I'm going to zoom in on this page if it'll let me. Nah, it won't let me. There it is a little bit. All of these flood warnings in here in the eastern two-thirds of the state, and that will begin to include southeast Virginia. This is going to be a big problem. All that rainfall falls across these, what we call catchment basins or river basins, and they funnel it into these river systems, tributaries to those river systems, and over the course of the next few days, that water begins to rise, even when it's sunshine and butterflies outside. That being said, let's look at some of the hydrographs over the next few days. This is the current level at the northeast Cape Fear River near Chinkapin, and if you know the area, you know where I'm talking about. Floyd comes to mind as the benchmark flooding event from freshwater for North Carolina. Some of these records are going to surpass or approach or surpass Floyd. When you start saying that, that's really saying something, okay? In eastern North Carolina, you remember. So right now, 9, almost 10 feet, forecast to gradually rise to about 23 feet here, and the record's 23 and a half. This will probably change over time. This is the first look at it. So you folks up in the Chinkapin vicinity, along the Northeast Cape Fear River, you absolutely need to start listening to emergency management in your area, Pender, Duplin counties, and be ready to act, because there could be some significant flooding headed your way. Moving to the next hydrograph, if you'll do it for me. Really, both of them the same? Well, way to go, Mark. So the next one, the Lumber River at Lumberton, climbing up through moderate flood stage now, headed to record levels here. See the record, 20.5. This will beat it by more than that. 21.2 feet, leveling off and staying above record flood stage for quite a while, an extended period of time. Okay, so this is important too. You folks there, what is that, Robertson County? I hope I know my counties. The Lumberton area, all right, you need to be paying very close attention to this and listening again to the advice of your local emergency management officials. You can go to the National Weather Service at weather.gov, put in your zip code, and it'll tell you very detailed information, much like when a hurricane is coming. Next, the Lower Little River at Manchester, and this is just a look at, there's so many of these around, but this just gives you an idea. Smaller towns here, okay? These are not your big cities like Raleigh, where we had a big flood event back this past April. In Houston, 4 million people live there, gets a lot of attention, and rightfully so. But when you're talking about some of these small rural towns, Manchester along the Lower Little River, people are going to be impacted. And here, beating the record by 3 feet, 36 inches above the record. That's incredible, all right? So, again, people in this area need to be watching this extremely closely. Pay attention to the local media, especially, and your local advice from your local officials. Local advice, yep. Because you're not going to have specific information necessarily down to your neighborhood from CNN or the Weather Channel. That's going to be more of a broader scope. So, again, weather.gov, weather.gov, put your zip code in and learn what you need to know now, because these waters are coming. And this can be deadly, all right? People need to take this very seriously. This is more serious on a wider scale than the storm surge was from Matthew, because we know absolutely certain that this is coming. You may have a few inches deviation plus or minus, but this has nothing to do with whether or not the track of Matthew is here or there or the strength. The water has already fallen out of the sky, and more is forecast to fall, and it's still falling. So these numbers are probably going to change. I'm going to address this again tomorrow. Also, there's areas up along the Neuse River. I can't get into all of them tonight. You should Google search the Southeast River Forecast Center and then check that out. It's a very complex and detailed page, maybe a little bit above the average user's skill level, but boy, some of that information there could be extremely helpful. But Goldsboro, Kinston along the Neuse River, you're also a target for this flooding. In some cases surpassing the levels of Floyd in 1999. That being said, I am looking at going up to Goldsboro or Kinston later tonight to put out one of our unmanned camera systems to monitor what's happening over the next 30 hours or so. Might be able to put a longer lasting camera, but we had some problems with it down in Charleston. It kept turning off. If I can solve that problem tonight, maybe I can have a longer one for 66 hours, but don't hold your breath. Sometimes the gremlins get in and your technology just quits for no apparent reason. But with fingers crossed, maybe we can monitor this for at least 30 hours with one of our more typical unmanned camera systems. We have two different ones. Smaller battery packs, 30 hours. The little bit larger battery packs, still extremely portable, will go for 66. And so I'll have that posted on the hurricanetrack.com website. Of course, all of our live video goes into our app, Hurricane Impact, as well as this video. So be sure to follow along there and on social media. I am at Hurricane Track on Twitter. That's it for me for tonight. Good to be back home in my house in Wilmington, North Carolina, where Matthew left a little bit of a mark, but not too bad. And we're thankful for that. For everybody else who is going through a rough recovery, who had damage, I certainly feel for you. I know where you're coming from, and I wish you a speedy recovery. I'm sorry to hear about loss of life. That's always the worst part of this for obvious reasons. Property, I know it hurts too, but it's the loss of life because I think it's always preventable. But a story for another day, perhaps. Mark Sett of HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. And I'll have continuing coverage as the saga of Matthew moves forward.